Picture this. You're in the frozen wilderness of Finland. An entire army, one of the biggest in the world, is being absolutely terrorized by just one man. A ghost they called the White Death. Today, we're unpacking the incredible true story of how a simple farmer became a legend.
So just think about that for a second. What if, on a battlefield that's nothing but blinding white snow, the biggest threat wasn't a tank or an artillery shell? What if it was just one guy, completely silent, totally invisible, somewhere out there in the trees? Well, for one massive invading army, this wasn't some hypothetical question. It was a terrifying, deadly reality.
It all started during the brutal Winter War back in 1939. Soviet soldiers, they started whispering these stories, almost like a campfire horror tale about a ghost in the snow. An unseen killer they nicknamed Belaya Smert, which translates to the White Death. He wasn't just a soldier to them. He was a myth born out of pure terror, a man who had turned the entire Finnish wilderness into his personal hunting ground.
But here's the thing that's so wild about this story. This legend, he didn't come from some elite special forces training academy. Nope. His story starts on a quiet, unassuming farm with a man who knew the land better than he knew himself. That man was Simo Häyhä. Before the war, his life was simple. He was a farmer, and he was a hunter. His whole world was built on patience, on understanding the forest, on how to move without making a single sound. And you know, these are the kinds of skills no army in the world can teach you, and they were about to become his most lethal weapons. So when the Soviet Union invaded Finland in 1939, this quiet farmer answered the call to defend his home. And in that moment, he basically transformed. He went from Simo Häyhä, the hunter, to the legendary soldier the entire world would soon know as the White Death. And let's be clear, this was a classic David versus Goliath fight. You had the gigantic Soviet Red Army on one side, with all their tanks, their planes, their artillery. And on the other side, one man who had completely mastered his environment. The Soviets had all the firepower, sure, but Simo Häyhä had the forest itself fighting on his side. So, the big question is, how did he do it? Right? How did one person become so devastatingly effective against an entire army? Well, it wasn't about having the fanciest high-tech gear. It was all about a deep, almost primal understanding of how to become completely invisible. His whole method was just genius in its simplicity. First, he wore an all-white suit to literally become a part of the snowdrifts. He'd even burrow down into the snow, creating a little natural bunker that hid him completely. Then he'd take a few shots and immediately move. Never stay in one place. But honestly, his most brilliant trick was what he didn't use on his rifle.
And this part is just fascinating. He completely rejected modern technology. See, most snipers use a telescopic scope, right? But Simo knew that a scope's lens could catch the sun, creating a tiny flash of light, a glint, that would instantly give away his position. So what did he do? He used simple, old-school iron sights. It was a low-tech choice that made him a ghost.
So the result of all these tactics wasn't just, a high kill count. It was something way more powerful. It was pure, unfiltered psychological terror that just spread through the Soviet ranks like a virus.
And that brings us to the number. Over 500. 500 confirmed kills in less than 100 days. I mean, just let that sink in. It's a staggering figure that turned him into a legend and struck absolute fear into the heart of an army. Every single soldier knew that number, and they knew it was only going up.
The feeling on the ground was pretty clear. They weren't fighting soldiers anymore. They were being hunted by a phantom. For the Soviet troops, this wasn't war as they knew it. It felt like a horror story. They were the prey, constantly being watched by an invisible predator. That kind of paranoia, it's crippling.
The Soviet command got desperate. I mean, really desperate. They started ordering these huge artillery strikes on just empty parts of the forest, hoping a random shell might get lucky. They even sent in their own top-tier sniper teams with one mission: hunt the hunter. And you know what? They all failed. The ghost stayed a ghost.
But, no soldier is invincible. No one's luck lasts forever. And after months of being this untouchable phantom of the forest, the sheer chaos of war finally caught up to Simo Häyhä. And ironically, it might have been the very thing he worked so hard to avoid: a glint of light, probably from another soldier's weapon, a tiny flash in the snow that gave away a position and drew enemy fire right to them.
During this incredibly fierce firefight, a Soviet soldier fired. Simo was hit in the jaw by an explosive round. The injury was absolutely catastrophic. It shattered half his face
And just like that, his war was over. He was pulled off the battlefield, pretty much presumed dead. But that same resilience, the same toughness that let him survive for weeks in the frozen wilderness, it saved his life. He actually made a full recovery, even though his fighting days were done. The White Death had been found, but his legend was now immortal. So, what's the lasting impact of this guy's story? It's about way more than just a kill count. It's a really powerful lesson in warfare and in human resilience. Ultimately, his legacy is a testament to the idea that knowing your environment inside and out can beat superior technology. It's a story about the incredible power of patience, the devastating impact of psychological warfare, and, maybe above all, the fierce Finnish spirit of Sisu, that unique, stubborn will to defend your home against literally all odds.
And the fact remains, with over 500 confirmed kills, his record has never been broken. The quiet farmer from Rautjärvi became a national hero and a permanent ghost in the pages of military history.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. In our modern age of drone strikes and satellite surveillance, we think of war as this distant technological thing. But the story of the White Death is a stark reminder of the timeless, terrifying power of that one single, invisible human on the battlefield. So what really is the value of the one person you simply never see coming?